And I think we need more people to say it's blurry right now. And I'm searching for the clear. But right now, it's okay that it's blurry. And it's okay for me to say it's okay, it's blurry, and it's okay for you to say it's blurry too.
So, April Wahl, we are on the Authentic Pastor podcast, which you say you're honored about. And the truth is, I'm honored that you're with us. You're with me anyway.
You are so kind, my friend.
So, do you do a lot of podcasts? Because you should.
You know, I can honestly say I've only done one other podcast, but maybe there is a Midwestern podcast out there for me just waiting. That's going to be my big break. Who knows?
So, like the pastors listening from like New York City and the urban jungle, you don't think they can relate to a girl from North Dakota?
Oh, I think we could. I think we could relate. I think we could find some common ground here or there to talk about. So
right now they think you're from Canada. Right?
North Dakota is southern Canada sometimes, I feel like. So
that's what they say about Michigan too. Cindy's from Minnesota, you know. And so she was, I don't know if we were in a restaurant on an airplane or something like that, and somebody said, "Oh, are you from North Dakota?" And she said, "North Dakota? We make fun of people from North Dakota because of their accent."
It does happen. It does come out. Yeah. We'll just say that I save the real ope, the long O's for the people that know me the best.
Yeah. Yes. You know, last time I was in North Dakota, which has been way too long now, staying at your house with your dear husband Jordan and one child at the time, 2 now.
Yes.
I was really looking forward to this brief moment, you know, when I had the opportunity to come back this last year in the middle of like January, which doesn't excite me. It's like, oh, that's where you want to go in January. Let's go to North Dakota. And and then they unhired me within 3 or 4 days because somewhere on my website it says I drink bourbon. And I'm like, okay, I mean, so I guess that's a great excuse. I should put more things on like that if it keeps me from being invited to like the frozen tundra of the world.
I mean, we are a top tourist destination, especially in January, February.
What?
March. That's total sarcasm. Nobody wants to come here. Nobody wants to come here in the winter.
I did a pastor's conference in Fairbanks, Alaska in February one time. And I'm like, why? Why, God? Why did I say yes to this? Why would you even, and what have I done wrong that you want to send me where it's 50 below zero? These pastors don't.
As the high.
These people don't need this kind of help. You know, I could have phoned it in. I could have just phoned it in. Oh. All right, so we've gotten that out of the way that you're from North Dakota. What else do you do? Tell us what you do in North Dakota, because I know, but no one listening may know whatsoever. So let's introduce them to the legend that is April Wahl.
Oh, man. I work with teenagers at a church in Bismarck, North Dakota, smack dab in the middle of North Dakota. And I love teenagers. They are my favorite people in the whole entire world. And I work specifically with middle schoolers. And I've been doing this for close to 15 years already. And they give me so much hope. And I know that teenagers forever have always gotten a bad rap about, oh, they don't do this, oh, they don't do that, rah, rah, rah. But they inspire me each and every day. And there's a lot of days where I feel like I don't know if I can do this anymore. I don't know if I can keep going. And there's this beautiful moment where I see a teenager doing something incredible or living into their identity and purpose and belonging. And it's just this, oh yeah, it's this exhale of, this is why I love what I get to do, because I see this beautiful picture.
You know, that's a funny thing about middle schoolers, because, you know, my wife teaches middle school. She's taught seventh grade for 35 years. She's a
Legend.
and she's a public school teacher, which I'm always thrilled about, because that means at some point she's going to retire, but your tax dollars are going to pay for her mental health care because she's going to need it. And teens, adolescents, pre-adolescents, prepubescent kids are really funny, because when you talk about authenticity, uh, they are what they are, right? You get what you get,
Yeah.
and every day is different, because I don't care who they are, they're always trying on something new. They're trying on
Right.
a new identity. They're trying on swear words, right?
Yes.
And they're terrible at
Yes.
it. Like, I mean, even your kids in your youth group, they break out with some expletive, and they do. Let's just talk about it. And they're like, man, you don't even know how to cuss, right? You don't even know how to cuss.
I'll never forget, as a middle schooler myself, and MSN Messenger, that was the way we communicated with everybody. And I'll never forget, I was trying on a new identity and I wanted to be tough girl, like, I'm such a rebel because I'm using swear words on MSN Messenger. And I did not know that my parents' computer automatically saved the chat history on MSN Messenger. And my mom and dad, the incredible people that they are, printed out some of that chat history when I was trying on my identity of like, ooh, I'm so tough, I'm going to use swear words. And then they read the chat history to me and they said, well, these are interesting words to use. And that was all I needed to know. Like, that was just the reading through of me trying to be bad girl April. That was enough punishment to never do it again.
And I don't even know the bad girl, April. You know, I know the sassy girl, but not the bad girl. So 15 years in youth work. When are you going to become a real pastor, April?
Oh, maybe when I grow up someday.
Isn't that just crazy? Like, you know, my whole tribe are youth workers. I've been in youth ministry for 32 years. I always say that I'm a senior pastor, but I'm really a youth pastor disguised as a senior pastor. You know, it's my secret identity. Yeah,
Yes.
I think most senior pastors would be better off if they pastored people like they were middle schoolers, because the truth is, we all still are.
Yeah.
We've just
Yeah.
learned how to don the mask, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yep.
inside, I'm still 13, 14. And there's parts of that I don't know that we outgrow. But do you
Yeah.
ever, I mean, talk about your authentic self. Do you ever feel that, like, you're discounted, even though you love what you do so much, you pour everything into it, you shepherd and pastor kids? You ever feel, and it's kind of a trick question, not even a trick question, just I know the answer to it, but you ever feel like you're discounted in your job?
Yeah. Um, there's been, I could have a journal full of stories of getting to know people at ministry events or conferences, and, oh, what do you do? Oh, I work with middle school students and I'm a youth worker and I do youth ministry. And, oh, so just middle school. Yes.
Yep.
Just middle school.
Yep. This is the
And
part of your church that you don't want to do.
we don't want you either. No, I'm kidding. Not with that attitude. Uh, but yeah, and then I know who I am and I know whose I am and I know what I'm called to do. But especially when it's in ministry circles, that's the response from people. that are also in ministry, there's times when I start to question and wonder, well, is this really all I do? Am I not as important as a church planter? Am I not as important as somebody that's a pastor of discipleship or a worship pastor or a lead pastor because I just do middle school ministry? And that's where I feel I have to check myself before I wreck myself to say, where am I finding my identity? And what I've discovered over the last year is that there's a lot of times where I've lived off of the roar of a crowd. Not like I'm Taylor Swift on her Eras tour standing in front of a bazillion people, but where I live for that applause. I live for that affirmation. And so when those moments come up of, oh, you just do middle school ministry, it's like I get sucked right back into that. Oh, but are you sure? Are you sure you're good enough? Are you sure that you have value and worth and purpose? And yeah.
I think we all, I mean, I don't think we all get there, right? There's all times that we don't feel like it's enough. And so we do crave that applause. It's a false sense of security, right? I mean, it is an absolute false sense of security. It puffs up our ego until the point where we might find ourselves drifting or gravitating towards getting more of that, which actually makes us shallower and hard to connect with. You know what I think it's about great working with middle schoolers? And I think middle schoolers more than high schoolers, correct me if I'm wrong, which I can be a lot. I just don't like to admit it. Middle schoolers love you no matter what, more than high schoolers. You know, you can't be. High schoolers are getting to a point where I don't know. I don't know if it's a coolness factor. I'm waiting for all my youth ministry friends to weigh into this later. But middle schoolers, for some reason, they'll let you have a bad day. You don't have to be on all the time. They don't know that you're trying to, produce something, perform, accomplish something, achieve something, grow a crowd or whatever. You can look like crap. You might not always be super nice and your outfit might not match. They don't care because their
No.
outfit never matches, right? They're just, they're still wearing their pajamas, but it's really, in some ways, it's easier. There's some ways it's really harder, but some ways it's easier to be a youth pastor because kids are a lot more gracious than their adult counterparts in the church.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
really are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I also feel that they'll catch you if you are not being authentic.
Oh,
They
yeah.
can
True.
sniff that out like, I mean, like the axe bomb that went off in a boys' cabin at summer camp. I mean, they know if you are not real. They know if you're not coming from a place of authenticity. And in so many ways, that keeps me accountable to living into authenticity, because that's what they need, that's what they want, and that's what they desire. And if I'm not showing up authentically, like, yeah, they'll still love me, but it's kind of like, we know who you really are, April. And yeah, I'll never forget after after this, we were in the mountains of Montana, and we were sitting out by this campfire, and I thought, like, man, I just gave like a bang up talk. Like, that was so good. That was spot on. This 7th grade girl comes up to me afterwards, and I'm thinking, like, in my mind, I'm like, she's gonna be like, wow, April, that was so inspiring. Thanks so much. That really inspired me tonight. And she comes up to me and she says, April, Are there sometimes when you're talking, like when you're up front and you're giving a message, and then you don't really know what you're saying, and then you try to figure it out as you're saying it? I was like, ah. I mean, I just shrunk inside, but I was like, girl, like, I got to give it to you. Like, you are exactly what I need. And I said, yes, there are some times where it feels like it's all over the place. And I just trust Jesus is going to sort it out all out. And she looked at me and she's like, yeah, I kind of thought that. And then walks away to the campfire to go roast her marshmallow.
Thanks
like,
for
cool.
thanks for thanks for lighting my marshmallow on fire.
Right? Like, I'm
You
just going to
know?
go watch my soul melt like this marshmallow into the campfire. It's fine. I'm totally fine.
The difference is, I get off stage and am now with my church or an adult crowd, and they're all like, "That was an amazing message. That was it. Really touched me. Thank you so much. The Holy Spirit spoke to my soul." And I'm thinking, well, it must be the Holy Spirit because that message sucked, right? And
Yeah.
it sucked. I know it sucked. The whole room knew it sucked, right? But they just lie to you. That might be a little bit hyperbole, but it's not far from the truth. The older that we get, the more that we mask our own authenticity. We know how to blow up other people's ego.
Mm-hmm.
We just
Yeah.
know how to tell people what they want, and it just keeps us in this spinning wheel of doubt, right? No
Mm.
different than the question of, like, am I enough? Oh, you're just a youth pastor.
Yeah.
Are you going to graduate from that? And not only are you just a youth pastor, but you're a female youth pastor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know that has been, you've struggled with that a bit, feeling like you've got a voice sometimes that people will listen to,
Mm-hmm.
even though you've got years of experience, and wisdom around a table. Like, you're discounted. You've got to, like, make a stand and pound your fist for people to pay attention to you. That's got to be painful.
Yeah. And, uh, and again, that's too where I question, am I supposed to be doing this? And how loud do I need to be? How sassy do I need to be? And I remember I was flying back from these denominational meetings that we had in Vancouver. And I've never had a lot of moments in my life where I'm like, wow, that was the Lord speaking to me. The clouds open and whoa, there was his voice. But I was writing in my journal and I wrote down, sometimes you have to gain scars and scrape your knees, blazing a trail so the little girl behind you can run on that same trail.
Hmm.
And that was in 2018. And ever since then, those have been words that I have gone back to when it comes to being a female in youth ministry and saying, how do I live into my calling, designed by God, created by God for his purposes, to do these good works that he prepared in advance for me to do, so that the pathway, that the trail is blazed for the girl coming after me, so
Yeah.
that she doesn't have to fight or kick or scream to say I belong here, but that she can just step into this beautiful calling as a female in youth ministry and say, this is a part of the kingdom. I'm a part of the kingdom, and we're building this together. And there's some days where I'm just ready to give it up and just ready to say, you know what, let me just go work at Disney World. I'll be fine. I'll be a happy
Oh,
camper.
well, that'd be amazing for you. I've got pictures of you wearing, like, Minnie Mouse ears this year, like a month ago.
Yeah, like, and not even in Disney World.
No, that's,
I
yeah.
mean,
You create your
uh,
own. You create your own Disney World all the time. You
I do. I do.
you
I
know
tell
what? You
people
know,
I go to therapy and I go to Disney World because
and
they get
sometimes
worried. You just do Disney and you don't do therapy. I do both.
they're the same thing. Different sides of this same sword. You know what's interesting is that nothing you've described right there is different than any person with a title of pastor has had, regardless of what your assignment is. Right?
Hmm. Mm-hmm.
There are times that we think we've arrived.
Hmm.
Like, oh, I climbed the ladder, as if there's actually a
Hmm.
ladder, right?
Yeah.
Like someday you'll be a real pastor or whatever. You're going to move from this pastor. Will you eventually be a senior pastor or a lead pastor? Um, like I said, that's why I just wear this lead pastor disguise. I just got roped into it, um, and I've learned to love it. But there are times that becomes your safety net,
Hmm.
where it insulates you
Hmm.
into thinking that you don't have to constantly um, be authentic in your job. You've bought some grace. You've been doing it long enough, and then you just get on this trajectory of repetition.
Hmm.
When I think when you are feeling as though that, hey, I have to, and this is two-edged sword here. I got to prove myself. I got to perform. I've got to do this. I've got to continue to find a way to keep going. And your impetus for you is like, I'm paving the way for
Mm-hmm.
the young lady coming behind me. But if we all had that mindset, that I'm just creating a space for the next person and
Mm-hmm.
working myself out of a job, you're such a better leader when you're releasing people's potential and making space to know that someday you're just going to work yourself right out of a job, and that's legacy, right?
Yeah.
That's true success. I will never forget, I had an instructor in college decades ago, Dr. Jack Perrin, and he always taught us in those early years of youth ministry training, that's when you'll be successful, is when the person that you are training is more successful than you. But a lot of people, boy, they are really threatened by that. I mean, just you
Mm-hmm.
saying that is a real feather in your cap, because a lot of people can't say that they're trying to raise up the next generation to take their place. Because who am I without this place? Who am I without this title? Who am I without this position?
Yeah.
And I I've struggled with that, because I really like my identity as the leader.
Mm-hmm.
Although I don't like my identity as pastor, I prefer never to be called pastor, because I think it makes a space. Some people think it's a place of honor, and I'm not here to argue that. But for me, it really is a space or distance between those people I'm really trying to connect with. And if I let you put me on a pedestal,
Mm-hmm.
then am I always not inadvertently looking down on you, or worse yet, you looking up at me with some kind of Messiah,
Yeah.
Savior image, which becomes then my own complex that I have to deal with. And it makes the matter worse.
For sure.
And sometimes middle schoolers don't let you do that. Adults will let you do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just, I, there are so many times where I feel, as someone that works with middle schoolers, that I, I feel on the same level as them, as to, like you were saying earlier, I feel like that 13-year-old girl is still very much a part of me. And if I try to come across as and again, I mean, within boundaries, there has to be respect and authority when you're on a trip or you're gathering together. But if I come across to them as, I'm up here on this pedestal and you're down here, then I feel like I've lost my heart for youth ministry. I feel like I've lost that authenticity, and maybe that's why I'll never grow up. I'll never grow out of youth ministry, because there will always be, I was just talking with one of my youth leaders about this last week, but we said there's still that 13-year-old girl inside of us that during a youth group gathering, that we're wanting that affirmation. We're wanting kids to like us, and it's like, how do you live authentically into that, but yet in a healthy way, where you're not trying to win kids by giving away a free snowboard or a free snowmobile here in North Dakota, but that you're
an ice house, an ice
oh
fishing sled.
man, I have middle school boys like that. I mean, let's talk about attractional ministry in North Dakota. If I wanted to fill the building, I could give away an ice house, like top of the line. I wouldn't even know what kind. I could just call up one of my middle school boys and be like, tell me what it is.
The ice houses in North Dakota look like a motor home.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They come on wheels. You drive it onto 16 feet of ice. You park it for months at a time. It's got beds and refrigerator. I mean, you might as well just have an RV.
Exactly.
They are an RV. So what you said earlier is what I was trying to communicate and messed up about the difference between middle school and high school. Middle schoolers want to know, do you like me?
Yeah.
High schoolers want to know, do you love me? Because they're not just trying on behaviors. They are sticking their toe in the water, diving in and taking on an identity. And do you still love me? Even though what I did, what I said. And there's parts of that none of us ever outgrow. And I think that's where inauthenticity is germinates, grows, and then, is birthed into this full-blown facade that is not the true, authentic us that God designed. And that's why I say that, we're always pastoring, regardless of the age. We're always pastoring middle schoolers who still want to know, do you like me? And then, do you love me? You and I have been able to walk with a tribe of people that in that circle, that's never questioned.
Yeah.
That's never questioned. We've got some unique relationships, which I am thrilled about, because you entered that tribe just 3, 4, 5 years ago? When did you enter our little tribe?
2018, and I only know this because I had to look it up. I had to look back on my iPhotos for something a couple of weeks ago, and there it was, the YS in St. Louis.
So. Is that where it was, St. Louis? I always try to remember it. I always think, I can't remember. Was it St. Louis? Was it Atlanta? Where was it? Because it was like, in the final, couple of years of the National Youth Worker Convention. And I don't know if that'll ever exist or not. Maybe it exists now. I'm just kind of out of that world at this moment. But I'll never forget the phone call that I got from our friend Tosh. He said, hey, I'm going to meet this young youth worker who I don't know. And because you felt all alone in this big sea of, youth ministry people in St. Louis. And we struck up a friendship then because, and I know why, because at large events like that, especially like when you're there as a speaker, people love to blow sunshine up your butt. They really do. Like, oh, greatest seminar I have ever been to. Greatest message I've ever heard from the main stage ever. Oh, thank you so much. And you're just like, seriously, it wasn't really that good. I mean, I gave it, so I know that I was all over the place. I need that girl in Montana to walk up and go, does it ever feel like sometimes you're just, making it up as you go along? And the truth is, yes, most every Sunday. And we didn't have that kind of conversation. There was no like this sounds really bad, but there's like idolatry, like, oh, you know, no, it was just a conversation with a young youth worker who's trying to find her way, who'd written a few things, who was doing a really good job. You weren't looking to build a platform or get notoriety. You were just looking to connect.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that what everyone's
Yeah.
looking for? Is just
Yeah.
connecting. But for some reason, in the culture that we live in, with all the ways we have to connect, we're not connecting. We're just
Yeah.
we're just performing.
Right. Yeah. And I think, I mean, I would be lying if I said that for so many years in youth ministry, when I would go to a conference like that, that I felt like I had to perform. I was never on stage. I was never doing a breakout session by any means, but I felt that when I would interact with other youth workers, that I had to put on this persona of like, oh, I'm this up and coming youth worker. Don't you want to read my blog? Don't you want to do this? And there had been some significant events that had happened leading up to that time in St. Louis where I really was kind of knocked flat on my face and understanding that this is, if that's what you're going to set your eyes on, is this platform and this performance, then get ready to get on the hamster wheel, lady. Like you have to be on all the time, and you got to perform, and you have to do this, and you have to do that, and you have to achieve, and you better not make anybody mad, or else you're going to be kicked out. And I really struggled after some of these significant events happened in thinking, I'm nobody. Who
Mm.
am I? And I
Hmm.
remember going to that YS feeling like, okay, I have some friends here that I know are on the main stage, that are, doing some hosting things, but other than that, I'm really alone. And I I mean, looking back, it was such a gift to walk into that building and have our friend Elle say, hey, you have to look for this redhead named Tosh, and then she's going to help you connect with all these other people. And now, I mean, even my family knows that this tribe of people that I have are so dear to me. And so hitting kind of that space of understanding, I'm of getting knocked flat on my face when it came to performing and getting a platform and all that kind of thing, that led me to connection. That led me to finding authentic friendships that were built on just all the good things that you want in a friendship, and thinking these are the people that I know are going to walk with me, that are going to sit and listen, that will call me out on my crap, that will be like the seventh grade girl in Montana. Um, but maybe they do it a bit more gently. But yeah, that man, that was a gift, just coming
The
into this
the
tribe
I
of people.
the irony is everything in us is wired to want that, and everything around us externally causes us to second guess that.
Mm-hmm.
I I've had multiple young pastors say, "I want to do what you do. How do I become that?" As if there's a formula, right?
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
I never set out to have an audience. Now, not that there weren't times where I really tried hard to build my audience, and the harder I tried to build my audience, the smaller my audience got. Isn't that
Hmm.
funny?
Yeah.
And I would just tell young pastors, hey, you know what you do to have an opportunity to speak to more people? Just speak well every day to the people in front of you.
Yeah.
and someone's going to invite you to speak to more. But if you ever get to the point where now that's your identity, and it became that for me, you're going to lose credibility in your community. You're going to lose credibility under your roof. You're going to lose integrity with your spouse, your partner, your children. And I I had done that. I had chased this idea as if, once again, like if I keep going, I'm going to arrive to a point where I'm insulated, I'm grown, I become somebody. And the truth is, when uh, I went through some crisis a couple of years ago, I had built that for so long where now, 3 years later, I'm still trying to figure out, who am I? Who am I really? And which is where the authentic pastor was birthed. And what's funny is, I've thought, well, maybe I've created this whole project built around your own insecurity and it's no one else's problem, only to find out that it's everybody else's problem.
Yeah.
If they're honest. And I mean, sometimes it's easy in our podcast to talk about issues, people, situations as if we're being, negative or indicting. We're not. The whole system, the whole culture, the whole institution in some ways sets us up for failure. But what I try to remind pastors is they're looking to you for leadership. So if you don't like the system, only you can change it.
Yeah.
Nobody else has the power to change it. So change it in a way that creates that space that you really want, which is why we get together every year, for that pickup and that fueling when it feels like, oh my gosh, I can't go on anymore. And you and I've had that conversation more than one time where I get this
Yes.
random text from you like, I'm done. I'm done. I don't think I can go on anymore. But you've battled through that by being yourself. And you really have been being yourself. And this is not a whole podcast on, isn't April Wahl great? Because I'm going to end the podcast with all kinds of stuff of speaking crap about you. But
I mean, if you pull up my MSN Messenger chat logs from 1998 99, like
it will remove the veil and remove any doubt.
just,
right?
It implodes. It implodes.
The whole persona completely implodes. Hey, I will say this because I think it goes to our point, and it's not about puffing you up. Because there are pastors listening who do not feel confident in their calling to Christ. They don't feel confident in their gifting, and they second guess their assignment. So they move from one place to one place to one place to one place, hoping to find the place when they don't realize. I'll never forget a pastor that I was working with multiple times. He came to like every seminar I ever taught, any event that I was doing, there he was. And so I just kept thinking, who is this guy that keeps showing up? So I finally got to know him, and then he invites me to his church, and then pretty soon he calls me, invites me to his church again, and he's at a different church. And 6 months later, he's at a different church, and 6 months later, he's at a different church. And I'm like, dude, what's the problem? He goes, well, I thought I was called here, but then I got here, and these people, they don't really want anything that I've got. And then it would happen again. I'm like, have you ever just thought that instead of trying to go in and be something or change something, you could just go in and love the people there over time and let them change, and they will, in a healthy way, elevate you to a position of honor and authority without you trying to create it. And I think that's where authenticity does in us, is it forces us to try to forge a false persona as opposed to just following this simple example of Jesus and just loving people well. And as a result of that, you draw a crowd. I mean, yeah, if you could heal some blind people, that helps too, right? But I mean, that's always a good party trick. If you can make wine or bourbon, I'll follow you anywhere. And so roll a good cigar. I'm with you. Um, but you now I go back to what I want to say about you. And so I'm trying to really embarrass you. Is you're getting more and more opportunities because I don't think you have, I don't want to lie, you're not chasing opportunities. They're coming to you because you're this youth pastor, a full blown pastor who ministers to middle schoolers and their parents better than probably the lead pastor does because you have more connection with their parent. Not to throw Paul under the bus, the good pastor, but
Yes.
you have a lot of influence with both generations, and because you've done that well, people have noticed, which is a reason for you to stay authentic to that simplicity of your gifting. And I think when we get away from that is when we get in trouble.
Yeah. Well, those are very kind words. And I mean, you mentioned Paul, and I know we threw him under the bus, but I he's always been so great as well in this journey to help me, figure out my identity and my purpose and my calling. And and he went, I mean, he was a youth pastor for 20 years and went to every national youth workers conference possible. And I know that he had seen a lot of this building of the platform and, doing this speaking opportunity and this. And I'll never forget that as I was trying to pursue that same kind of thing over and over again, and he would do it in such a gentle and kind way where I knew he wasn't, shaking his finger at me and saying, like, okay, knock it off, but essentially saying, don't forget who you're called to and the people that God has called you to love.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget that. Don't forget the students that he has placed here in North Dakota, because they need somebody that loves Jesus and loves them. And I can think back to so many moments where he too would just speak that wisdom to just, again, don't strive to get to this place of arrival or climb this ladder, because that ladder can easily topple. But there are always going to be students here for you to love as Jesus has loved.
I
So
mean, it brings up the cliche, right? The higher you are, the higher the fall, something like that.
yeah, yeah.
And while there's pastors listening that I really believe need to hear this because they're not as confident and comfortable in their own skin as they should be, there are also pastors listening who've done this very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
They're not striving for something. They're just doing a really adequate, not even a great job, right? Sometimes we
Mm-hmm.
need to celebrate adequacy because
Yes.
some days, my best is only adequate, right? My best is
Same.
only mediocre. And I think it's okay to celebrate mediocre, not because I'm only doing a half a job, but because mediocre is all I got left today because I feel like a suck dried juice box. There's no, there's nothing left. You've taken it all out of me, which is why we talk about self-care and well-being for pastors and everything we do at the Authentic Pastor, because you'll never be able to give to the people that are right there in front of you. And if you're always striving to be something more for some reason to fill some empty void, like a middle schooler being liked that you don't have to worry about because you are already loved, you are going to you're going to struggle. So the pastors out there who are pastoring, like I've been in the same church for 27 years, so I think I can say I must do it okay.
Yeah.
They haven't fired me yet. I've tried to be fired. Like, I mean, I've tried to quit. I've tried to resign. Every time I try to resign, they ask me to stay, and I don't. They must feel bad, feel sorry. He obviously can't. He can't get a job anywhere else. Keep a bone on the front porch for him, so he just keeps coming back. The what I've tried to do and what I think you're doing so well, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to speak to this as we wrap up, is that I have tried to work myself out of a job. There are times that I have not been in my pulpit. Not even, we don't have a pulpit. Isn't that funny? We talk about pulpits and pews. There's no pulpits and pews in our church. And,
No, we
you know,
have music stands, and I have a pink one, which I know comes as a shock to you.
do you just
That I
pull
would
it
have
out
a
like
pink.
on the days that are in the youth room, right?
Yes, yes,
In
yep,
your really cool youth space. Yeah.
yes.
I don't think I spoke behind that when I was there. I think I
I
just
don't
sit
know.
on the
You might
floor.
have. You. No, I think we let you use Paul's orange one. You got to use the coveted orange stand,
The covered
so that's a
orange
big
stand.
deal. Yeah,
Place of
that's the
honor when you give
OG
the.
one.
There's Sundays that go by that I might be gone for 2-3 weeks in a month, and people don't notice,
Hmm.
which I think is when you've done your job well.
Yeah.
When your church can function without you, you've really fulfilled your mission as a pastor.
Yeah.
You've really equipped saints for service instead of prepared services for saints, is which, it's what we
Hmm.
do.
Yeah.
And that's what I call dyslexic leadership. People don't like the word I
Hmm.
use, dyslexic, because I think of making fun of dyslexic people. I'm not. We just get things backwards. We see things backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So you can prepare saints for service or services for saints, And if you're preparing
Hmm.
services for saints instead of equipping people and working yourself out of a job, pretty soon you won't have one. But if you're constantly preparing people to do ministry themselves without you, you're no longer irreplaceable. You're indispensable.
Hmm.
They can't imagine you not being there because you're the person who elevates them to a position of honor and
Hmm.
ministry and calling and mission. So
Hmm.
you talked about that young lady coming behind you. What do you want her to hear if she were listening to this podcast? What do you want her to know as she is pondering vocational ministry, or ministry in general? It doesn't have to be, pastoral ministry is not a higher, holier calling than anybody else's ministry. And that's something I was told when I was young that is a lie. Which is why sometimes we puff ourselves up and build ourselves up because someone told you it's the most important work in the church. It's not. It's one of 5 equipping gifts and one of many, you know, other gifts. So the young lady
Hmm.
who is trying to step into her own space and do something for Jesus that you're paving a way for, what are your words of wisdom
Hmm.
or warning?
You are warning. uh, I would. I would hold her hands and look her straight in the eye and say, "You are more than enough for this." Because the God of the universe created you to do this. And you have Jesus right there with you, making things possible, doing great things, and he's saying, "Come on, join me on this. This is what I'm doing." And guess what? God the Father's giving you everything you need to do this. So come on. This is the best. This is so much fun. It's going to be a little wild. It's going to get a little dicey. There's going to be moments where you're going to get really angry and you're going to get really frustrated. But never forget the words that I have spoken over you, that you are more than enough for this because of
It's
who
kind of like
Jesus
Paul
is.
saying to Timothy, don't forget your calling, when people
Yes.
laid hands on you. Don't forget
Yes.
that. Okay.
Yes.
Number 1. Number 2, you got a number 2?
Oh, man.
I'm putting you really on the spot. Don't you wish we had
Yeah.
a script? A script would be so much easier. April, here's your talking
Oh,
points. We're going to have a
yes.
very inauthentic conversation because we're going to script the whole thing.
Yes, and you can only say oofta 15 times and ope only 7.
There are
Um,
people listening who don't know what oofta and ope even
I
are.
know. I mean, come visit North Dakota. It's a
Well, there you
great
go.
state.
You're the
There we go.
spokesperson. Do you guys say you betcha?
We do. We
Yeah,
do.
yeah,
Yeah. You
yeah.
betcha. We
You
do.
betcha. Oofta,
You betcha
opta,
we do.
ope. Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, the second thing I would say to her is to find a good circle of people. Find dear friends that will journey with you, that will sit around a campfire with you, that will say the hard words that you need to hear, but the way that they say it, it's coming from a place of such care and love for who you are. So find those people, and sometimes you meet them walking into a youth workers conference, and yeah.
I had a person on my board years ago who would call me out and say, "You're selling me. Quit selling me. I don't need to be sold. I already believe in who you are. Don't sell
Hmm.
me. Tell me.
Hmm.
Just
Man,
tell
that's
me.
good.
Don't sugarcoat it. Don't put a spin on it. Don't sell it to me. Just tell me what you need me to know." And then he told me some of the best advice I'd ever gotten. Find yourself a circle of gray haired people. And they don't necessarily have to be gray haired, they just have an experience or wisdom that you have not um, cultivated or experienced yourself yet, you know, who've had their knees knocked out from them, underneath them, so many times, they don't care and they don't need anything from you.
Hmm.
In other words, don't surround yourself with people who buy your BS.
Hmm.
Surround
That's
yourself with
good.
people who just don't need anything from you, who've already done it. And then when you sit down with them, have a list of questions.
Hmm.
You don't need to tell them anything. You need to listen. And I'm now that gray haired person, I think, for some people. But that doesn't mean I still don't need it. So you're talking to the young lady coming behind you, whether it be young lady, young male, whatever it might be. There's people listening to the podcast that are my age, that are seasoned and been doing this for 30 plus years or 40 plus years. You still need to know, just like you're holding that hand of that young lady and telling her, listen, Jesus called you. He's gifted you. He's given you everything you possibly need. Journey with him. Go where he wants you to go. And then surround yourself with those people. If we ever get to the point in our ministry life, and we all do, where we forsake those two bits of knowledge and wisdom and don't prioritize them, we will fall from that manufactured pedestal
Hmm.
that we've climbed up on and people love to see us at.
Yeah.
It will
Hmm.
happen. If
Yeah.
it doesn't happen, you'll just sit up there all alone in this space of emptiness
Hmm.
and wonder what you're doing so far away from your original identity.
Yeah.
That's how I see it
Hmm.
anyway.
That's good.
And so maybe I'm still speaking from a place of confusion and brokenness, or maybe I'm speaking through a place of wholeness and recovery. I don't know yet. I don't know. Maybe I'll never know. Maybe this podcast is my part, the blind leading the blind, but I'm not unwilling to admit that, if nothing else, it's blurry. Some days it's really blurry, and it's not always clear as I once pretended it was.
Yeah.
So,
And I think we need more people to say it's blurry right now. And I'm searching for the clear, but right now it's okay that it's blurry. And it's okay for me to say it's okay it's blurry, and it's okay for you to say it's blurry too. So
Well, I
I'm
mean,
glad that I have a friend that says it's blurry.
if the Apostle Paul can say that he looks through a glass dimly, but someday we'll see clearly, then I would say pastors are in pretty good company.
Yes.
And we don't need to improve on the Apostle Paul's authenticity
Hmm.
in his writings. Maybe we should just absorb them and learn.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I will not see you in 3 weeks. Do not cry. Do not cry. No pouting
You
on the
know.
podcast
Oh.
because you're making a really good decision. And I want to end on this note. You're making a really good decision this year to forsake our tribe. And I don't mean forsake like in a bad way. You know, I'll make you cry later. To spend time with your boys and make your family's health and well-being and your own a priority, because you can say yes to so many things, so many good things, and say no to the wrong thing. You're saying yes to the right thing. And so pastors, April is one of our beloved family members in our little cohort, and who's had so many opportunities. She had to say no to something, and she is saying no to our gathering so she can yes to staying home. And if there's anything that you hear, if you finished this whole podcast with us, it is learn to say no to the shiny in order to say yes to the foundation. And so you will be missed, but you have set a great example for the rest of us. So thank you for that. Thank you for the hour of time.
Thank
And
you.
it's been great.
It's been so fun. It's been so fun. I'm just so sad I won't be there to make a good Midwest salad.
Now we're stuck with
Jell-O.
yeah, and fruit.
Right.
You
Like now you won't have, like Marco and I talked about, like you're not going to have the glorified rice with, the fruit and the baked rice and the Jell-O and the Cool Whip. Like and
you could have brought a hot dish. You could have brought a hot dish.
I could have next year tater tot hot dish and glorified rice and strawberry pretzel salad. It's on the menu.
Well, at least you ended it with my little North Dakota accident. Yeah, well, maybe it is an accident. I meant accent, but maybe the whole thing, the whole thing was an accident. Okay. Hey, love you. Thank you.
Love you too. Thanks.
Appreciate
Tim.
it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.